What I wanted to speak about tonight is how to be a successful non-tech product manager. I think for a lot of people who are looking to get into tech and looking to get into startups and they don't come from a technical background, they can find it quite hard. And product is sort of one of those roles where actually it can be quite easy to get into, and it is a good place for those who don't come from that tech background. But obviously it can be a little bit intimidating as well. So just giving some insight into my experience in doing that and how you can be successful as well as a non-tech product manager. So yeah, this is me. I'll just give you a little bit of background about myself, how I ended up working in product. So originally I wanted to be a lawyer. So when I was at university, that's what I studied. I had a job working at the Crown Law Office in New Zealand, which is basically like the lawyers for the government. They do all this sort of high-level litigation. I was very much on the track. I know Peter Thiel talked about that. It was like I'd graduate, I'd stay there, become a Crown solicitor, and so on. And I ended up having a bit of an existential crisis because I realized I'm using Uber to get around, I'm using Spotify to listen to music, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I use Snapchat. Tech is basically changing like everything that I do, and I'm not a part of that. I'm in this very kind of old industry, pen and paper, very stale. And so I thought I want to be a part of that. And I literally had like no idea of how I was going to do it. I was lucky I had a friend who was living over in Melbourne at the time. And he said, there's a really good tech scene over here, there's a few startups. Just come, you can kind of intern with me, shadow me around. And you'll find a job and we'll kind of go from there. And I was lucky that at the time Uber was hiring, and I decided I'm going to learn everything that I can about this company. I think they're on a growth trajectory, they're doing some really cool stuff. So I applied, luckily enough I got an interview, and then so the rest is history, and I worked there for a year in Melbourne, trying to get more cars on the road, trying to improve the service, trying to grow it. And then from there I got the opportunity to go up to Sydney to launch Uber Eats. Obviously food delivery, it's pretty exciting at the time, we were one of the first international markets. And that was where I really sort of, leveled up in my career. I spent time in the Philippines training BPOs, so support centers. I learned a lot of analytics. I had to basically build supply funnels. I was working with the product team in the US because we're a new international market. And I really sort of settled on this idea of, I think that's where I want to be. I want to be working in product. Luckily enough, I had some friends who were at StartCon. They met these guys from this company called Spaceship, which was doing superannuation in Australia, which is like, like an ISA style product, a pension product. And I was really excited about what they were doing, applied for a job. And then from there, everything that I learned, I was able to apply and ended up becoming head of product and then running a product team. And so that's what I'll talk about tonight. So these are some of the places that I've been to, and the way that I wanted to structure this talk tonight as well was firstly just running through sort of my definition of what product is, the different types of product manager, and then the skills or the tools that you can do to be a successful non-tech product manager. So firstly, what is a product manager? So this is a nice little Venn diagram. I've seen a lot around the internet and a lot of really famous product books. And it sort of talks about a product manager being in this sort of sweet spot and this Venn diagram, so between user experience, tech, and business. And I guess this is where it comes back to this whole idea of you don't have to be technical, because obviously there's a lot of different stuff that goes into being a product manager. It's not just about being a technical person, it's not about being an engineer and building things. It's about bringing all this stuff together to build great products for users. So this is Marissa Meyer. She used to be the CEO of Yahoo, but she was employee number 20 at Google, and she was one of the first product managers there. And Google has a really famous, called like an APM program, Associate Product Management Program, where they basically teach people how to be product managers. And Marissa Meyer is great because one of the reasons why she got into product is she was actually an engineer, but she'd done cognitive psychology at Stanford. And so she sort of had this idea of understanding customers, but then she also had the technical know-how as well. Anyway, what is a product manager? So you own the product basically. It's yours. You're the one who's responsible for the success of it. You have to work cross-functionally. So generally reporting lines can be a little bit weird, like you're not necessarily reporting to marketing, or you're not reporting to sales, or operations or anything like that. It kind of sits across a whole number of different verticals. And then it has this idea of being a general manager or CEO of the product. And I don't know, what kind of background you guys have, but when you ask a CEO what is it that they actually do, sometimes it can be really hard for them to explain what it is. And a lot of that is basically trying to clear the decks, get all the distractions and stuff out of the way so that people can do their job. And that's analogous to product as well. So you're the one who's distilling all the information, trying to remove all the blockers, all the distractions, make it as clear as possible what the vision is, and then let the team build. So what does a product manager do? So these are sort of the 4 key things. And the reason why they're looping around is because product is iterative. It just keeps on going. You're never finished. As soon as you ship something, you're back to the beginning again. You study it. Can we do better? How can we iterate on it? How can we improve it? So the first part of it is you have to have a strategy and a vision. So if you don't have that, there's no point. So you need to know, or you need to be thinking about who are your users? What are the end goal? What do they want? What are the key metrics and insights that you have? How are you going to measure success? What do you want this thing to look like? And then from there it goes to prioritization, problem solving. And this is the hardest part of being a product manager, because as you're the CEO, you're the GM of the product, you're making the final decisions on what you do, when you do it, and the why as well. And obviously, because you're working cross-functionally, you have a ton of inputs. So everyone in the business thinks that their need is the most important thing. And you have to tell them, actually, no, this is more important than that. And it can be a really difficult thing. So really figuring that out and nailing that down is super important. And then execution, so actually getting it done. Again, you've always got to be shipping, you've always got to be pushing things out, getting it in the hands of users, testing, measuring, and then going back to the beginning. If you can't execute, then again, you're going to be in serious problems because you're never going to know, is it good, is it bad, do users like it, because it's never got to anyone. And then the last part is the communication and coordination. And the communication links into all 3. Again, you have to explain the why. So you really need to sell to your whole team, to the whole company, why it is that you're working on what you're working on. And if you can't do that, then it's going to create a lot of problems. Because what people like to do as well is they like to talk to engineers or they like to talk to other parts of the organization, and you're the buffer, and you've got to make sure that your way is what's happening, the roadmap is clearly communicated, and everyone can get in behind that and build. So the 4 types of product managers, these are the buckets that I like to split them into. So the first one is a business PM. And a business PM, they're pretty common at enterprise SaaS companies. They're basically people who really understand the sales side of the product, the company strategy, company vision, what it is that you're actually trying to do. They'll usually work pretty closely with people and sort of the business side, so like the CEO directly or COO. And they know a lot about pricing, customer segmentation, and again, using that enterprise SaaS example, thinking about, hey, if we're going for really high-end customers, then building features is going to make it really easy to onboard lots of smaller customers. Maybe that's not something that we should be working on. So again, they'll be really closely tied to top-end business metrics. The second one is the tech PM. So that would be that Marissa Meyer type. That would be someone who comes from an engineering background. They know the tech side of the product really well, usually like a full stack engineer. And again, they'll be working a lot on infrastructure. So in product as well, it's not just about building the flashy front-end apps, websites, that sort of stuff. There's actually internal tools, internal infrastructure, and there's PMs for those jobs as well. Third one is a growth PM. So I guess Facebook's probably the most common place for a PM like that, particularly in the early days. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Nerd EL. He wrote a book called Hooked. And he talks a lot about that hook framework. That's these guys' sort of bread and butter. How do we get the hook? How do we get users coming back? How do we make the product more engaging? How do we get more users? And they'll do a lot of A/B testing, a lot of experiments, all that sort of stuff. And usually these guys are a little bit technical as well. They might know a little bit of front-end engineering. And then the last one is a design product manager or a user experience product manager. So again, these are generally people who have come from a design background and they really understand, user stories, how to build an experience that users love, all the latest conventions around user-centric design. They'll usually be quite qualitative, so doing a lot of stuff with like bringing users in, wireframing, getting them to go through that sort of process. And they're usually more front-end consumer apps. The one thing that a product manager isn't is a project manager. So if you find that you're spending all of your time just organizing people and running schedules, that's not product management. And that's a trap that a lot of people can fall into as well, particularly at early stage startups. I know I did myself when I first started working in product, is rather than thinking about the roadmap, thinking about the business strategy, thinking about what we should be doing next, I was just trying to organize a team. And again, you really want to steer clear of this as much as you can. So if we get rid of the tech PM, because we know what makes those guys successful, generally it's coming from a good technical background and understanding the code base of your app. What are the skills of these non-technical product managers? So this is a guy called Scott Adams. He wrote the Dilbert cartoons. Does everyone know Dilbert? Yeah, so he's actually a really famous, successful author in his own right. He writes books outside of Dilbert. He wrote a book called Win Bigly about Trump winning the election. He writes a really good blog as well. But one of his key ideas is this idea of building a talent stack. So basically what it is about layering skills. So building up skills that can make you extraordinary or make you really successful in what you do. So for me personally, like my talent stack, I started as a lawyer. So I developed analytical skills, communication skills, argumentative skills, skills based around looking at precedent. Then from there, I went to Uber. There I learned SQL. I learned a lot of data analytics. I worked in big customer service teams, all that sort of stuff. So again, layering the talent stack. And then from there, I went to Spaceship and I was running product teams, building product from the ground up. Again, so just layering it all there. And that's the most important thing for working in product. It's not necessarily about one specific skill, and that's what's going to make you successful. So that being said, this is what I consider the non-tech PM talent stack. These are the skills that you want to be layering if you're going to be successful, and this is just based on my personal experience, what I've seen from the industry. So I'll run through these now. Cool. So the first one is product taste. I stole this quote from a guy called Ron Holiday, and what it is, tell me who you spend time with, and I'll tell you who you are. And I think that's the same with product. So the products that you use, the products that you like, the things that you're exploring, that's going to make it super helpful for you as a product manager. Just understanding why it is good, why do people use them, why do I like them. The product manager that I worked with, he was always on product hunt. He knew all the greatest products and stuff coming out, and he was fantastic because he was always ahead of the curve. Obviously, there's a little bit of survivorship bias in a lot of stuff that we use because they're generally the ones that win, whether it's with the most funding and all that sort of stuff. But even then, just be thinking about why do I use these? Why do I like these? Developing a good taste for product. The second one, I spoke about it before, but the ability to prioritize. So this is a framework that some people use. It's called an effort impact matrix, and it helps you decide what it is that you want to do. So for example, you put up this matrix and say on like sticky notes, you'd actually put up all your different items, your feature requests on there, and then that would help you decide what it is that you want to do. But being able to prioritize and be able to think about why it is that you're doing what you're doing is, again, the most important skill that a product manager has. Because everyone is always going to tell you that what they want is the most important thing. The next one is ability to execute. So I don't know if you guys know this film, Glengarry Glen Ross. It's about sales. Anyway, it shows you always be shipping. So we used to have like a 2-week release cycle at Spaceship, and getting that release cadence, again, is one of the most important things that you can do. You've always got to be shipping. You've always got to be having product come out. If things get jammed up, you can be in serious problems because you're not iterating. You're not understanding what's going wrong. You're not understanding what it is that users like or don't like. You're not encouraging people to come back because things are getting pretty stale. This one can be pretty hard because obviously if you're not an engineer and you're not actually building it, it can get quite frustrating. And so a lot of that is understanding what's going on, what are the blockers for engineers, why are they unable to ship code. So for example, if they're spending 6 hours of the day fixing bugs, then perhaps that's something that you should prioritize, is just giving them time to actually fix all the outstanding bugs. Or if they're doing manual processes, for example, giving them time to automate everything that they can do so they can solely focus on what it is that you want to work on now. But yeah, working with teams, understanding what it is, what it takes to be able to consistently ship is one of the best things that you can do. And also, like, again, if you're trying to grow a product or if you're trying to make it engaging, one of the best ways of getting people coming back is obviously releasing new things and making it better. So the next one is strategic sensibilities. So a product manager really needs to understand what the business objectives are and what the business goals are, because what it is that you're working on should be reflecting that. So understanding the key KPIs, the OKRs, what the top line is for the company in terms of like revenue, users, what are the unit economics of what we're doing as well, is super important. And also on that note, industry trends as well. If everyone else is pivoting away from something, there's probably a reason why, so you should be on top of that and understanding, why it is that they're doing what they do. Another example of strategic sensibilities as well is focusing on where you should be spending your time. So for example, like we were building a financial services app. Now there's like tons of those in market, and if you go through the onboardings, they all look the same. It's certain parts, right? Like all the data collection, all that sort of stuff up front, it's always the same. Now, a lot of them are pretty well funded, they've been around for a while, so chances are they've probably pretty extensively A/B tested all that part of the flow, and they've come up with the optimal one. So if you're building something similar, it's probably best just to copy that flow and think of other ways where you can differentiate. And then focus your effort somewhere else, testing somewhere else. Whereas if you want to go back and try and like reinvent the wheel, chances are you're probably not going to get any really big gains from doing that. So yeah, you really got to pick your battles and understand where the best places where you can add value. The next one is communication. So as the buffer and as the person who's always articulating and communicating the why of what you're doing, you need to be a great communicator. A lot of that is written. So writing great documents, publishing great roadmaps, having everything really clearly available, sending out recap emails, making decks, doing like retros as well, and then obviously the verbal part of that too. But if you can't get people on board with the why, if you can't sell to them why you're doing what you're doing, then you're going to have problems. And then the next one is data-driven. These are some tools that PMs should have at least one of them in their toolkit. So SQL's a really good one. It's pretty easy to learn once you get into it. Python, R, and even Excel. But metrics are really important, being able to understand what the right metrics are, report on them, understand whether your product is working or if it isn't working, all those sorts of things. You can't do that unless you have something to analyze, or you have a tool to be able to analyze that data. And yet, again, understanding what are the right metrics, what are the wrong metrics. And then the last one, this is Jeff Bezos. This comes from one of his investor letters, one of his really early ones. But company value that Amazon has, and we had it at Uber as well, is being customer obsessed. If you want to get into product, you have to love your customer. You have to want to keep building great products for them. You have to keep listening to them and talking to them. So one of the first jobs that you had to do when you joined Uber, regardless of your role, regardless of your position, all that sort of stuff, was to do 1,000 support tickets. So literally sit there and answer angry emails from customers, well, generally angry emails. And even when I left a couple of years ago, the GMs and a lot of the senior level executives and stuff as well were still doing tickets like once a week just to check in and see what customers were saying. And another thing that they introduced as well was called the employee driving program. So a lot of the company were actually driving Ubers, for example. So if you're not using your product and you're not actually doing it, then you can't really be customer obsessed because you don't understand the pain points and all those sorts of things. So yeah, being really, really closely connected to the customer, having a really customer-centric approach is one of the best things that you can do. And at Spaceship, probably for our first maybe 1,000 customers, we actually onboarded them all manually. So a lot of it was like talking to them on the phone, talking to them in person, and it helped us build our product because we were getting direct feedback from them about what it is that they actually wanted. A lot of people think that there should be this barrier between them and the customer, and that's customer service's job or customer success. But really, it's everyone's job. And yeah, the closer you are, the better your product will be. One of my favorite products at the moment is a company in Australia called Up, which is like a neobank, like Monzo or Starling. And I swear their product roadmap is just feedback they get from people on Twitter or like Facebook or whatever. Like every time someone writes a comment, pretty much within the next 2 weeks, I'll see them ship it. And I think that's a really great approach. One thing that people tend to do as well is have this sort of like Henry Ford mindset. So he's like, oh, if I'd have asked people what they wanted, they just would have asked for a faster horse rather than giving a car. That is a good approach as well in terms of sometimes you do have to think outside the box and actually think, okay, we're going to try and differentiate and do something different. But if you get in the hands of customers and they don't like it, and people aren't using the product, then there's no shame in pivoting and just giving them exactly what they want. So yeah, I think those are the sort of, it's not an exhaustive list, but if you keep those things front of mind and you're building product based on that, you'd be pretty successful. I think as well, obviously in that list, none of that stuff is really coding. The closest is doing data analytics, but Excel and stuff is not super technical. A lot of it is just knowing your customer, being a good communicator, understanding what good products are.